Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Today's story is that of Caroline Byrne. We're going to the other side of the planet. Australia, baby. Let's go. Sin and Tonic! Full disclosure, today we are warts and all. I am not looking my best, greasy hair pulled back, something going on here that I don't even know what that is, new hair I think, on the wine. Been a very busy one, and I wasn't very well last week. I think I might be a little burnt out. So please take me as I am, and there won't be green screen. We're going to go old school shed, just so that I can, otherwise there won't be a video because it takes too long. The technology, you know, amazing but time consuming. So we're going to go bare bones. Without further ado, I didn't pick the case for this reason, but somebody, one of my subscribers, and I forget who, I apologise, said, oh, do an Australian accent, because I did New York, didn't I? New York. And I thought, yeah, when I get an Australian case, and somebody, another subscriber, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, suggested that this case, and when I saw that this case was in Australia, near Bondi Beach as well, hello, Bondi Beach is my favourite. Also, if we're being truly honest, this is my second or third glass of wine, so we're just going to go with this and see, you know, will I end up finishing? Who knows? The wine, yes. The video, not so much. Where was I? Bondi Rescue, love it. One of my favourite YouTube channels of all time. Look at me, I've digressed before we've even begun. Our story takes place in 1995 in Sydney, Australia. G'day, from down under. I find the victim's name hard to say. Is that New Zealand? I don't know where I've gone to now, guys. Is it New Zealand or is it still Australia? Who knows? Put another shrimp on the barbie weight, don't you? Oh, let's go. 1995, Sydney, Australia, and the victim in this case is Caroline Byrne. It's spelt B-Y-R-N-E, and I'm going to pronounce that as Byrne, but I'm going to call her Caroline. At the time of our story, she is 24 years old, and she was born to Tony and Andrea. Caroline was described as just pretty wonderful and very nice and kind, and I know you can't judge a book by its cover, but there's lots of pictures of Caroline because, mainly, I believe, she was a model. So she was a professional model, and then she went on to work in a place called June Daly Watkins, and it was like a school for models. We don't have them here in the UK, but apparently, oh, sorry, that's the chair. But apparently that is like a finishing school in America. I don't know what that is either, but I'm assuming similar to like model school. When she worked here, she became a modelling teacher. So she was very good at what she did. So she taught others. She was very striking, very beautiful. And I'm not sure, I couldn't find what happened with her career because she was a professional model. She worked part-time for the school, and then she ended up being full-time at the school, so she was a full-time teacher. I apologise, I missed out her birth date. So she was born in 1970 on the 8th of October. Sophie, not boding well, is it, with the vino? Should have stuck to gin. Really tragically, when Caroline was 21, her mother committed suicide, and it was a big tragedy within their family. And sadly, a year after that, Caroline would take an overdose herself. Her mum took an overdose of pills, and that's how she died. And Caroline did the same a year later. At this time, Caroline was in a relationship with somebody called Andrew Blanchett. They had been together for 6 years when her mother died, and then they remained together for a year afterwards. And then Caroline met somebody called Gordon Wood, and it seems like one of those things where two people meet and they are very swept up with each other, and regardless of who they are currently with, they know that they just want to be together. So she left Andrew, her 7-year relationship, for Gordon. Gordon was a trainer at her gym. Sadly though, you know, this is a bit because I think Andrew was really nice and I think Caroline was really nice, but Gordon, not so much. Gordon, people described him, well, words just came up and I was like, well, these are not good words. Arrogant, controlling, manipulative, jealous. These are not good words. He very much wanted to be a businessman. He wanted to go up in the world, and he was very money hungry. Very, money orientated. He was also 8 years older than Caroline. He then moved on in his career. He went from gym trainer to a chauffeur and assistant to a very rich, powerful man called Rene Rivkin. He was 50 years old. He was thinking rich, and he was like a stockbroker. And you can just tell, like I said, don't judge a book by their cover. Caroline's picture, she looks very nice and very sweet. Rivkin looks, like work hard, play hard. That was the kind of guy he was. Okay, a little bit of goss. He was, I don't know how relevant this all is in the story particularly. I thought it might be juicy when I was first researching, but actually as it went on, I was like, oh, I don't know. But he had a wife, Rivkin, and he had children. But he often, what the hell, Sophie? This is going to be so fun. I'm just going to keep drinking the wine. Oh, God. He often surrounded himself with, hunky men. Hunky. I'll share some pictures if I can. There was a particular picture where I was like, oh, and in that picture, Gordon is in the picture. This led to rumours that Rivkin and Gordon were secret lovers. Don't know. Read into that what you will. In the beginning year of their relationship, Caroline and Gordon, it was rocky. And actually, there was a few months in that first year where Caroline left Gordon and she dated somebody else, actually. Despite the gay rumours, his bad character, blah, 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 Caroline got back with Wood. You can't deny sometimes there is just attraction with people, like, it's not going to work, it's not good, but you can't help it. And it feels like this was one of those situations with Caroline and Gordon that, they weren't compatible, but they both really, really found each other attractive and magnetic. The couple would move in together in a place called Potts Point. How cute is that? Potts Point. Love it. As you can imagine, the couple were nicknamed Barbie and Ken. You've seen the pictures. You know what I'm talking about. And from the outside, they looked like a very happy, content couple. Despite the happy facade, in 1995, Caroline would speak to her friends about wanting to split with Gordon. In this year, she also visited a doctor and said that she was a bit worried about everything because she felt increasingly depressed. This doctor was Dr. Cindy Penn, who is apparently a famous, or was, like a TV personality doctor. Do you have someone like that in America, I think? Like, is it Dr. Phil? Is he really a doctor, though? Oh, fill me in. I'd love to know that. I've always wondered that. Is he a real... Judge Judy, is she a real judge? Like, I don't know whether I'm watching reality. It's a minefield out there. Dr. Penn asked Caroline if she was feeling like she wanted to harm herself or if she was... I got distracted. Dr. Penn asked Caroline in these meetings whether she felt suicidal or that she wanted to harm herself, and Caroline said no, and Dr. Penn did believe this. She didn't feel like Caroline was suicidal at all. This will come into the story. You'll see where I'm going. However, to be on the safe side, she booked an appointment for Caroline with a psychiatrist so that she could have this chat, and even if you're not thinking of harming yourself, you want to look after your mental health. Her first appointment with the psychiatrist was booked for the 7th of June 1995 at 4 p.m. Caroline would not show up for this appointment. She also hadn't shown up for work. She'd called in sick that morning. I would say let's put a pin in that. That's an interesting point. She'd called in sick. Gordon said that he went home at about 1 p.m. that day, and Caroline was at home and she was in bed and she wasn't very well. He also said that he called home again at about 4 and she wasn't there, but he thought nothing of that whatsoever because he knew that she had an appointment. At 7 p.m, he got home from his day of work and she wasn't there again. But again, he didn't know how long she was going to be out, so he didn't think anything of it. He put the telly on, he fell asleep, and then woke up hours later. When he woke, it was between 10 and 11 p.m. And at this point, he worried because Caroline was still not home. He went down to the garage to check if her car was there, and it wasn't. So he knew that she'd not come back. And this is where it gets spicy, guys. Oh. What do you think the first thing you would do? Would you maybe not call the police, but would you maybe pick up the phone and ring friends, family? Seen Caroline? Is Caroline there? Would you maybe not make a phone call or two? No. He doesn't pick up a phone. He doesn't ring. He seeks from within. The bloke reckons that he used telepathy, is that how you pronounce it? To call out to Caroline to find out where she was. What the actual? Now he says, and there's no proof of any of this, but Gordon says that he drove to her father's apartment building, but he didn't knock, he didn't go and check. He just thought, oh, her car's not there, so off he drove. He drove away. He then claims that he drove to Bondi Beach car park, Bondi, to see if she was there. Car wasn't there, moved on. He then claimed that he went to a picnic spot that they used to go to, which is Camp Cove, which was 20 minutes away. He says that he was basically checking all of the meaningful places between him and Caroline. So Bondi Beach, Cave, whatever I said, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, mate, two things. If you're zoned in and you're using telepathy, why are you trying out what? No, she'd just be like, I'm here, right? So you're shite at that. Second of all, that's not telepathy, is it? Like, if you're just going to drive around all the places that, she likes or whatever, that's not following her voice in your mind. That's just looking for someone, mate. But, interesting point, there's no proof that he went to any of those other places, but we do know that he ended up at somewhere called The Gap, not the shop where you get lovely clothes. He claims that when he was driving off away from Camp Cove, he drove down the road, he found her car, he saw her car in a lay-by at this place. Now, The Gap is a place of natural beauty. It's like a huge cliff, basically, and it is very beautiful. I will share some pictures. It is also, sadly, a renowned suicide location. Gordon meets two fishermen on the cliff, where he's looking. It's quite late at night. I mean, why are they fishing at night? That's got to be something. Is it a thing? How do you see? What the hell? Anyway, so he says, can I borrow a torch? And they give him a torch. Now, this is another point to note. I should have made a list of notes of what to note, because I just said then about noting that she called in sick. Try and remember that, Sophie. This is another point. They gave him a torch, but the torch was very dimly lit. It wasn't like a big old huge light. It was quite a dim torch, flashlight. They say that when he walked away, he was saying, oh no, she's done it. So that's what he was saying. Oh, she's done it. They did suggest to Gordon that this torch would be pretty shite in terms of being able to see down onto the rocks, because it is a 30, I'm going to say metre. I'm not going to say foot. It's a 30-metre drop. I will write what it really is, because I'm not sure. It's a long way down. At this point, Gordon contacts Caroline's brother and father, and he goes and picks them up and brings them to The Gap. Caroline's dad, Tony, and her brother, I believe it's Peter, they found Gordon incredibly odd in this whole process. First of all, they wanted to know why hadn't he called the police? Good question. Second question, how the hell did he know where she was? Even though he claims to have been visiting places that they frequented, the Gap was not one of them. So effectively, his story's a bit, like a kid's like, and then, and like, you're just, you just know when they're like lying. It feels like that because, oh, what, you just happened to come across her vehicle at the Gap. And that's why I think, sorry, this is just Sophie's thoughts here. I think he was going to try and say like, oh, I was just visiting all the places that we used to go, and then I happened to come across her Jeep. But that sounds a bit rubbish. So then I think he was like, oh, actually, I knew. Why did that feel like uvavu? Uvavu. Anyway, you won't know what that means, I don't think. What was it? Bob Mortimer? Besides the point. Just realised that I'm probably going to have like, when you get red wine, blue teeth and lips. Rolling with it. Attractive. Gordon kept saying that he knew she was dead. I know she's dead. I know she's dead. She's done it. Now, when they get to the Gap, they search for Caroline, and the brother and father, they can't see a thing. She's not up on the cliff, they haven't found her there, and they are looking down below and they cannot see a thing. All they can see is pitch black. They claim that the torch, like the fisherman said, was utterly useless and it didn't shine down, you couldn't see anything with it. At 1 a.m, Gordon is pottering around and he starts to shout and scream that he can see Caroline's body at the bottom of the cliff and that he's found her. Tony and Peter, they come to look, they're obviously devastated and they can't see anything. He's insisting that he can see Caroline. You must just be like in that moment like, are you mental? Are you freaking mental? They are looking at the same thing that he is looking at, and he's saying that he can see her body, and they can't see anything. A doolally. And at this point, they call the police. The police arrive with huge, big, powerful torches, and they can't see to the bottom either. So I don't know about it. It's just, heads up, this is one of those cases where it's a bit like, some things come into it and you think, oh, could it be that? And then, I've got an opinion, I'll share it at the end. It was a long night, and finally, when the sun came up, sadly, they did find Caroline's body. This blows my mind. She was airlifted out, her body was airlifted out of the rocks below, and not a single photo, allegedly, not a photo was taken. So you've got this crazy boyfriend that claims that he found Caroline through telepathy, right? Nutcase. Everyone else going, look, we couldn't see her, but he says he could. Like, he knew she was here. Hello. And yet, not a single photo was taken because they assumed it was a suicide. Now, I don't for a second believe that is policy. Surely, even a suicide, please let me know. If you are from Australia, please, especially, because obviously this case is there. Do you not, I would assume that, have we not watched 100 single billion movies where it's like, oh, it's a suicide, oh no, it's not. Yes, take photos, please. No. Nevertheless, it's a freaking crime scene, guys. Crime scene. Suicide or not, take some photos. Because of this, there is no evidence of where her body was, what position it was in. Only the words, the testimony of the people that found her body and collected her body and all of that. And it's just, but that only goes so far. Frustrations, yes. From police recollection. From police memory, from their recordings of the scene, police said that Caroline's body was found between 10 to 12 metres out from the cliff edge. It's quite far out. Most suicides are found 2 to 3 metres from the cliff edge. She was also found head down with her legs sort of up. And that was another point that was made, was that Gordon was saying, I can see her legs sticking up. and her shoes. And it was he could see quite clearly the position of the body. And yeah, while others couldn't even see anything. So he was being quite descriptive, but no one else could see a thing. And that is indeed how she was found, head down and her legs were up. She was unrecognisable, as you can imagine. Again, most suicides are found to have jumped feet first. I mean, the only way that they could imagine is that she took a run and a dive to get that far out and to be head first. Good old Gordon, he volunteered to go and identify her body. He couldn't look at her face because it was not pleasant. So he had to just look at her body and identify her that way. Caroline's dad, Tony, he strongly believed that Caroline was murdered and that this was not a suicide. Her dad, Tony, his suspicions were not without cause. Gordon had displayed odd behaviour before her death, before finding her body, and he'd also displayed unusual behaviour afterwards as well. He tried to cash in her jewellery, saying that she wouldn't need it anymore. Okay. And then the witness statements started to come in. People said that they saw Caroline at the Gap that day. Cafe owners Lance and Craig said they saw her at 1 p.m. and then again at 3 p.m. They also said that they saw her with two men. Through descriptions that were given, one of them was very similar, sounded similar to Gordon. The police did find some evidence on the day that she died. There was a receipt from a petrol station that was near to the Gap at 3:32 p.m. That was about a 15-minute drive from the Gap. So she could have been seen at the Gap at 3 and then she's gone to a petrol station. She bought 2 Freddo Frogs. Get in, love a Freddo Frog, and petrol. And then at 3:47, there was a receipt for somebody, she probably got cash from her account out of a machine, which was 10 minutes away from the Gap. Tony was not the only one that was suspicious. A lot of people felt like there was something else going on here. Because let's go back to good old Rifkin, Gordon's rich elite boss. Many people thought that Caroline just knew too much and that she had been a victim of murder by somebody to do with Rifkin and Gordon. This is because in 1993, there happened to be a very big fire at a Sydney printing plant, and this plant was owned by Alpine Printing Firm, which was owned by none other than Renee Rifkin. No one died, and the fire was blamed on employees having a barbecue, but investigations showed that this was an act of arson. The plant was worth $54 million, Australian dollars. What is it called in, God, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. Dingo dollars. Yeah, dingo dollars. Rifkin had purchased this plant for 15 million dingo dollars. So, seems like a profitable fire. I don't understand business, but the fire sent the shares rocketing. So they went high, but just before the fire, I don't know why, because surely that means that the business is going to fail. Don't know. But before the fire, Gordon strongly advised Caroline's dad to buy shares in the firm, which implies that he knew that the shares were going to rocket and that he would make money and blah, blah, blah. So it just implies that Gordon was in on it. Interestingly, just one day before Caroline died, was murdered, Rifkin and Gordon were called in to a meeting with a proper investigation, insurance-y, fraudy thing about the fire that had happened 2 years ago. They were called in. Makes you think, did Caroline did she report them? Did she do it? And that's why they were interviewed the day before. I don't know. That is speculation, but maybe. Despite any, dodge going on, her death was ruled a suicide. However, a year later, 1996, another coroner ruled that her death should be looked into again and the case should be reopened because, he suspected foul play, mostly because Caroline's dad, Tony, had persisted and persisted. He was fighting for his daughter. He really thought that she had been murdered and he was not going to let it lie. Interestingly, Gordon would stop working for Rifkin in 1996. In 1998, an inquest was finally held into Caroline's death. This resulted in an open finding, so they couldn't say whether she had been thrown or whether she had jumped. In 1998, Gordon also moved here to the UK. Wonderful. And he did a television interview, and he was a cocky son of a gun. You can find it, or bits of it, on the tube. Check it out if you can. And he says, "So, do you think I did it?" You just want to like bop him on the nose, like, stop, go away. Yes, I do, weirdo. Now, somebody called John Doherty, he watched this interview in Australia and he was like, whoa, I know that guy, I've seen that guy. And he came forward to police because he said that on June the 7th, outside his art studio at 8:30 in the evening, he witnessed Gordon and Caroline and another man having a row and an argument, etc. His studio is very, very close to the Gap. A little bit after that, a couple of hours later, he said they came back and they were arguing again. And then a little bit after that, about 11:30, he heard a short, sharp female scream. I'm going to just say now, I'm going to pop it in, because at 11:30-ish, the fisherman that gave Matey Boy the flashlight, they too heard a short, sharp female scream. So that sounds like that was the time that Caroline went over the cliff. There was a gentleman that countered this because he was, weirdly enough, on that night, 7th of June, he was driving round that area near the guy's studio, the art studio. Excuse me, no thanks. He was just saying that he drove past and he was noting down, because he was going to buy the restaurant or something like that. There's a restaurant on that road. And he was looking at what cars were parked on the road near this restaurant. And he said that at 8:30, he can verify, because he was keeping a log of the vehicles and their number plates, that her vehicle wasn't there and that he did not witness a man or two men and a woman arguing. This guy, John Doherty, came forward 3 years after the event. Perhaps he had the wrong date. Equally, the guy taking number plates, he could have been a bit wrong with the time. So could have John Doherty. He could have said 8:30, but really, actually, it was 9:30. In which case, Matey Boy taking number plates, because he was like, I drove past at 8:30 and there was no one there. Maybe the time was a bit different. So it's tricky when the evidence isn't fresh. What are you going to do? With this new interview, the police reach out to Gordon. They want to know what his whereabouts was that day. Like, just tell us. Come on, let us know. He said at 1 p.m, he was lunching with a couple of mates, and those mates verify this. They say that he was then called away early by Rifkin, who wanted him to chauffeur someone to, back and forth golf, dinner, some shite. This client was a politician called Richardson, but he said that at 1 o'clock he'd been home and that he'd seen Caroline. However, he probably wasn't that particular with his timing back when he thought he was, it was all suicide and stuff. But at some point, he says, between 1 and 2-ish, he went home and saw Caroline. He then said that he spent the rest of the day just running around, picking Richardson up and doing errands for Rifkin and just being an assistant. Interestingly, years later, Richardson would let slip in an interview, I think a TV interview, that he hadn't been in the car at all with Gordon at 1 p.m. Moving on to 2006, 11 years after Caroline's death, it was deemed that there was enough evidence to charge Gordon with Caroline's murder. Whoa. Gordon was extradited from the UK to Australia, where he was charged, but he maintained his innocence. His trial would begin in 2008. Prosecution said that Gordon had planned to kill Caroline and had killed Caroline because she knew too much. The defence obviously said it was suicide. The placement of Caroline's body when she was found, which could not be confirmed because there was no photos. It was all questioned in court because they did experiments, the police, with a woman that weighed very similar to Caroline, her same sort of physique, and then 2 policemen, and they tried with a swimming pool, they tried in all sorts of ways to launch this poor woman into the pool like 10 metres out, and they never succeeded. So even with like one of them holding her and launching her, she never got to 10 metres out. So either this would have all been, if there were photos, we would be like, oh yeah, she was found there, that's definitely, they could measure it, couldn't they? But no, because no one took a photograph. So the only possible way that that they believe that Caroline could get that far out, if she was indeed found that far out, was that 2 people swung her. And again, that wouldn't really explain why she was head first. But would it? I'm not sure. On November 2008, Gordon was found guilty and he was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Now, while I do believe that Gordon did have something to do with Caroline's death, and I really do, because mainly because I just knew where she was. Oh, shut up. I mean, he knew where she was. Can anyone explain that? Perhaps the guy really was just like, I'm driving around all the places that we ever went, and oh wow, what coincidence. I just have come across her Jeep. Oh, maybe. Doubt it. But that makes me think that he just knew she was there. And also, even if that coincidence had happened and because things like that do happen, and he was just like, shit, that's her car, and then got out, and then all this thing, and then he went and got her brother, and he went and got her father. Why then was he the only person that could see her body? Why was he like, oh, look, there she is, oh, wow. And he was right. Where he said she was and where he was looking with his torch and all that business was where she bloody was. So he knew where she was. He knew where she was when no one else could see. That's why I think he killed her. I'm just going to say I think he killed her. However, there is no physical evidence to suggest that. Just the feeling that he's a weird person, and how the hell did he know where she was? And to me, it's like, is that enough? Is that enough? I don't know. I'm surprised that he was found guilty. And so were others, because 3.5 years later, he was acquitted. They said that there was insufficient evidence and, that he committed the crime, which is true, and that suicide couldn't be ruled out, which again is true. Gordon was then free. 2017, he tried to sue, saying that the case trial was flawed, which it kind of was, I suppose. However, he got nothing. Good, because I do think he did have something to do with it. Interestingly, Rifkin in 2003 was arrested for insider trading, so he was a cheeky monkey. Sadly, he took his own life in 2005. He was 60. Did he have something on his conscience? I wonder. I don't know, guys. That is all I have on today's case, but I want to know what you think on this one because, whoa. Did she jump? I don't think she did. Did she run and dive? I don't think so. In my head, the minute there's no picture taken of where her actual body was, even though people can remember things incorrectly, especially in moments like that. So to me, it's like, look, I don't think I can fully just accept that she was found 10 metres out. So that's difficult because they could have been wrong. She could have been 5 metres out, in which case, I don't know. But it's a difficult case, isn't it? Because it's just like there's so many things that we don't know. Was she swung off? Which is horrific to think that two people would have got her like that and done that to her. That's like awful. Equally awful that somebody threw her or pushed her. Again, the witness statements, they're dodgy because they're like 3 years after the event, the main one. However, the cafe owners, they were interviewed quite quickly. And might I add that her friends were the ones that took it upon themselves to interview these people. They sort of like pushed the investigation because they were sure she hadn't committed suicide. So they were talking to these people. So, right near to the day of her death, the cafe owners, Craig and Lance, they did say that she was there. So that seems like a more solid witness statement. And if that's the case, they saw her there at 1 and 3 with 2 men. Gordon doesn't have an alibi. He's also acted bizarrely. Didn't call the police, knew where she was. How did he know? No one else could see. Knew what position her body was in. What do you think? I have to mention Donald Ritchie, aka the Angel of the Gap. He lived in a property overlooking the gap over the road, and he is said to have saved hundreds of lives. He would be sitting in his property and he would see people contemplating jumping, and he would go out and he would talk to them. And this honestly makes me feel really emotional. He would go out and he would speak to these people and just strike up a conversation, and then offer them to come to his place and have a cup of tea and talk. And he just saved countless lives by just reaching out. He was interviewed a few times and people said, like, why do you do that? And he just said, you can't just sit and watch. And I thought it was lovely that he did that for people. For all the grim, dark, terrible things that happen, there are always people that are kind and loving and helpful and nice. And they're all around us as well. So we must remember that. Always light in the dark. I'm nearly done with my vino. It's been an interesting experience to sit up here and drink wine instead of gin or tea. I feel nice and relaxed, ready to tackle what comes next. Always a pleasure to be here, having a chat with you, having a glass of something, and taking my mind off of crazy old life. I'm really interested to hear what you all have to say about this case. I almost wish it was already time for comments, because I'm just like, please, hello, I need someone to talk to about this. It's all just like in here, no one else knows. Paul doesn't care. He was like, oh wow, he does a good job of like humouring me. Like, wow, no way. Oh wow, Paul, yeah, what do you want for dinner? And my kids are like small. Can't be talking to them about true crime. Never sleep again. Can I just share with you one thing, right? After I finish my essay today, it's thick and fast. I have an essay due every 3 weeks. That's not okay. That's horrible. I finished an essay today and I was like, I am going to treat myself to half a quiche with some salad. I love quiche and salad, by the way. That's not a hardship. Some people like salad. Shut up, Sophie. But quiche and salad, yes. Right? Cup of coffee and Grey's Anatomy. And I'm going to watch like an episode of Grey's Anatomy. Then I'm going to get on with my day, the rest of the day, with all the other stuff I've got to do. Right? As a treat for finishing my essay, that's what I'm going to do. I sit down, I have my quiche, I have my salad, I had water at that point, fizzy water, fancy. And I go, ba-boom. And the TV didn't work. What? The oven has broken this week. The TV did not work today. I was like, no way. And then I'm just sat there in silence with a quiche, thinking like, what? I just wanted to treat myself. I love Grey's Anatomy. Hello. I got upset. In the end, I watched an episode off, not through want of trying. I was like, TV. Wasn't having it. But YouTube would work on the telly, right? So I watched Diary of a CEO with Jordan Peterson as a guest. And I didn't watch all of it, but I've got more to go. But it was very good. And then just when I had given up all hope, I thought I'm going to try it one more time, because I was feeling sad about it. All I want to do is watch Grey's Anatomy. All I want to do. And then I go, boom, boom, and it worked. Small things, guys, but that was my treat. And I got it in the end. Yes. Okay. I'm going to leave you. Fill me in with your weekend plans. I fear that I am too wind up to continue the conversation. I don't want to embarrass myself. Might be too late. Anyway, love you. I will speak to you all in the comments. What do you think about this case? It's, going to keep me up at night. But, the wine will help. Gin will help. Wine will help. Love you all. I will speak to you all soon. Have a wonderful weekend. Love you. Miss you. See you next week. Bye.